Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Indy's Trusted Servant Show on inspiresmall.biz/Indy's Trusted Servant. What's Indy's Trusted Servant? Well, that's me. I'm Danny O'Malia. I do customer service training and keynote speaking about customer service. It's all really about the culture of the organization, be it business or not-for-profit. I learned all of that at the hand of the master, my late father, Joel O'Malia. Back in the O'Malia food market days, but even before that, when I was 9 years old and Dad owned a little grocery store in Broad Ripple that ultimately failed, and one of the life lessons he taught me 10 years later when he successfully opened O'Malia Food Markets was never, ever, ever give up. What's the Indy's Trusted Servant show on inspiresmall.biz/Indy's Trusted Servant? I like to describe it as lively local small biz and community talk where you can feel the pulse of Indy. And today my guest is a friend and fellow Rotarian, Tim Nation of the Peace Center at Eagle Creek Park. And I know that's not the total name of the organization. It's the what Peace Center?
It's the Peace Learning Center.
Peace Learning Center, yes.
That's right.
And we're going to learn all about the Peace Learning Center. But before we do, let's learn about Tim Nation. Tell us your background and all of that and how you came to found, and congratulations on 25 years.
Thank you.
That's fantastic.
Thank you. Yes, Danny, it's so good to be here. Thank you for inviting me. I came over here to Indianapolis way back in the 80s, working for this guy named Evan Bai. Now, you know, I'm a Terre Haute guy. And politics is a family business in Indiana. And my dad worked for Senator Birch Bai. And so when Evan came over and started running for Secretary of State, I got involved in his campaign as an Indiana State University graduate from Terre Haute. And I started working as an intern, and I helped him get elected in governor in 1988. And so I moved over to Indy to here in 87.
Before you go on, where'd you go to high school in Terre Haute?
But yeah, so to go before that, I was a Terre Haute North patriot. I would have gone to Schulte High School if it was still open.
Okay.
But unfortunately, we lost.
You did.
Yeah, I was part of that Catholic group of Catholic people. And actually, so much of my childhood was about those Sisters of Providence at St. Mary's of the Woods.
Yes. And did you go to Schulte grade school?
I went to St. Mary's of the Woods for their kindergarten.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm a St. Mary's of the Woods graduate. One of the few male graduates of the 1970s from St. Mary's of the Woods.
By the way, I'm a St. Mary's of the Woods graduate too. I don't want to take up all the time. I'll tell you about it later.
Okay.
You'll get a kick out of it.
Yes.
Okay.
So then growing up in Terre Haute was really fun, and I got a great scholarship at Indiana State. Decided to get my political science degree there, and I moved over to the big city of Indianapolis. And so once I started working in government, and believe it or not, when I was 25 years old, I was the director of the Indiana Board of Pharmacy.
Wow.
So I was supervising 4 retired state police officers who were the pharmacy inspectors. There was a board of 7 pharmacists who actually made the decisions.
Now, was Bai governor then?
And Bai was governor.
Yeah, okay.
Yep. And then, and so he was 33, so 25. I was an old guy. But at the time too, we had this multiple copy prescription program that was crazy. We were giving prescription pads to all the doctors in the state and tracking all of the hard drugs that are a big problem now, but they weren't a problem back then because we had a good program to monitor them and to work with doctors.
When you say hard drugs, what do you mean?
Well, I mean the Schedule IIs like Dilaudid, morphine, Ritalin, those
the heavy duty stuff.
The heavy duty stuff.
Yeah,
so the doctors had to use our special prescription pads for them. But that only lasted a few years. But anyway, I was my brother was in the Peace Corps. And I had a real sense of, boy, this national service stuff is cool. And AmeriCorps started in 1994. And when AmeriCorps started, I thought, I want to get involved with that. And I was lucky enough to be the first state AmeriCorps director when the program started. So AmeriCorps
is that a federal program?
It's a federal program, but what was cool about it was it said to states and local not-for-profits, if you can tell us how you could get 10 full-time people mobilized to change and do direct service like tutoring, mentoring, helping domestic violence victims, helping the homeless, all those kinds of things, then you could apply to host a AmeriCorps program. So it was a public-private partnership.
Okay.
And so I was in charge of helping these not-for-profits get their AmeriCorps program started and then recruit, 10, even 50 or 100 AmeriCorps members to help kids and help the community. And so for part of that job was to try to get conflict resolution training to all these AmeriCorps members.
Now we're getting close to the Peace Learning Center.
And then I saw this AmeriCorps, this conflict resolution stuff as one of the missing links in our society. When I first moved here, I lived at 24th and Delaware when it was called Dodge City. It was like the late 80s, the early 90s. And I saw a lot of violence, and I saw some terrible stuff, but I also got to know all the kids in the neighborhood, and I realized that all these kids had so much potential, but so many things in their world and their environment was causing them to go on the wrong track. So we started teaching conflict resolution to kids, and that's when.
Now, who was we though?
It was Charlie Wiles, who was running a domestic violence program called Indy. And so he and I were started doing projects in the schools where we teach AmeriCorps members to teach conflict resolution, and then they'd go and teach kids conflict resolution.
Okay.
And so I'm getting to the Peace Learning Center.
You're getting close. You're getting close.
So while we were doing that, Charlie and I were cross-country skiing out at Eagle Creek Park. And we've done that before, the year before, but we came across this same mansion that was just sitting in the park, and seeing it the second year, nothing had changed. And we said, this building's abandoned. And I thought,
who owned the building? The city?
Indy Parks.
Oh, Indy Parks.
Indy Parks.
Okay, yeah,
and it was an old Lilly mansion that was part of that huge, 6,000 acre park out there. And so we came across this mansion. I knew some people at Indy Parks, and we had 6 AmeriCorps members we could put in the building because they had 100 different offers to use that building, they said. But we actually had 6 people, and we had all this, we had the money and the backing to renovate the building and put a program in there.
How did you get the money to get it started?
Well, that's a good question.
And we're going to come back to fundraising later, but how'd that take place?
First of all, because the AmeriCorps program was already helping to pay for some of the staffing, the AmeriCorps grant helped on that part. But then we went to the Indianapolis Foundation, and we said to the Indianapolis Foundation, we want to start this place, and they helped us get the program started. But then we had to make a decision. It started with the Family Advocacy Center. Now, the Family Advocacy Center helps domestic violence victims here in the city. And so the Peace Learning Center started as a program of that because they're the ones that ran the AmeriCorps program.
Okay.
But then Peace Learning Center hired me on to be a consultant to help try to make it into its own not-for-profit.
Separate not-for-profit. So it started off as part of the advocacy group.
Yes, in 97 and 99 we became our own not-for-profit.
Okay.
Yep.
And you started with, you say 6 people? You
Yep,
had 6
people.
Right.
Yep.
Okay, so how does this work?
Well, let me start with the growth because that's what was really helpful for us. So here we started in 97, we have 6 people. Like, what are you going to do with 6 people that's going to make an impact in our community? And we thought, well, we want to work with Indianapolis Public Schools. And so how can we use this building and do the best good for the district? And we decided we wanted every 4th grader to come out for one day to go through a program and go back with a student workbook and a program the teacher could implement in the classroom. So we started out with a goal of 3,200 4th graders in the first year, one bus at a time.
What about the teachers?
And then the teachers went through the training with them, and they
That's
got
what
that.
I figured. Okay.
Then they got that book to take back with the classroom, but had about 12 more hours of activities in it. So one bus at a time, all 55 elementary schools made it out the first year, and we made our goal of 3,200 students, and the district said, "Oh my goodness, we would still be talking about it if we said we were going to start a program like this, and you guys already show that you can do good work." So then they asked us to start a camp for all the sixth graders in the district. And so a 3-day, 2-night camp. And so we started that down at the FFA Leadership Center, Future Farmers of America down
Not
in Trafalgar.
far from you, yeah.
Yeah. Well, no, actually their campground's down in Trafalgar,
okay.
southern Johnson County, almost to Brown. And so then we started bringing sixth graders in this 3-day, 2-night camps. We added more AmeriCorps members. And then we started this in-school program for 12 schools. And we had, within 3 years, we had 50 AmeriCorps members and a $1.2 million budget.
Now, wait a minute. Were you still doing the fourth grade thing
yes,
too?
Yes, fourth grade,
yeah.
sixth grade, and 12 schools with AmeriCorps members in it. So
okay.
we had a 50-member team of AmeriCorps that were broken up into each of those 3 different programs.
So how many employees do you have now?
Well, the funny thing is that we went from 50 to 15, and it cost the exact same amount of money because AmeriCorps AmeriCorps members take a vow of poverty. Because it's
like being a priest.
It is. You get punished for your mission. But I'm sorry, I'm just joking. But the AmeriCorps concept is like the Volunteers in Service to America. Remember VISTA? That's been around since the 60s. The concept is that you have to live like the people you serve. And so with all that, we have 15, so that we were able to pay for 50 AmeriCorps members, and they get money for higher education, and that's outside the money that's given to us, and other kinds of things too, like health insurance and childcare, which is really good for single mothers that want to get into the workforce. So anyway, we did the AmeriCorps thing for about 10 years, and no grant lasts forever. And so when the AmeriCorps program ended for us, then we just built our program on professional people who are there year after year. And AmeriCorps, in a lot of ways, the tail wags the dog. Because if you have 50 people and they're only good for a year, then you have to recruit. It's like running a graduate school. You have to recruit them, you have to train them. They get into service, and about April, May, they're ready to leave. And then the next year you do the same thing. So now
that doesn't sound like a very good investment in terms of, if you'd like them to stay longer, wouldn't you?
Well, it's just the way the program's set up. They're eligible for 2 years, and so I think about 20 or 30% would do 2 years of service. But I have to say, running an agency now with full-time employees that we don't have to recruit and train is so much easier. And we're serving almost as many kids, but not as deep as we used to, because we used to have, like 6 or 8 people hosting a classroom of kids, and now we have 2, and so we had more people. And what was cool about AmeriCorps is that those AmeriCorps members are good for like a 1-day program or a 3-day camp, but they're not really good for coordinating a school program or volunteers, because they come in, they come out, and you need more consistency. So they were good for that, but for long term, it's been really good to have employees and all that.
This might be a tough question to answer, but how do I phrase this to make sense? 25 years ago, you started it. How are the kids different today?
Yeah.
Is that a fair question?
It is a fair question. The funny thing is, I was just thinking about the other day, when we started AmeriCorps, if we didn't have enough work for these AmeriCorps members, we would have mutiny, because they're there to do service. And if they're just standing around doing nothing, then they're mad at you, and they're going to, you're going to have problems. But young people nowadays, if they're standing around, then they're on their phone, and they don't care if you tell them to get busy or not. Because I really think young people and their phones, that they're okay with not working, but the AmeriCorps members back then were not. So that's one difference. But just the kids themselves. The
kids, I wanted to know.
I'm going to talk about the kids themselves. The kids themselves have more adult problems than ever.
That's what I figured.
I am just so,
wonder why has it gotten?
Well, it's first of all, it's social media, because everybody gets to share all their problems to everyone, and everybody's like, and then the conflicts and the arguments and all that kind of stuff, and it's so easy to lob things at people when you're not like in the same room, rather than having to work things out. That's one thing.
This is true.
But then I was asking my son, my son who's 27 years old, And he's grown up through all this stuff and in the same era, right? And so over these last 25 years, and I said, well, you have to have faith in this country. We're going to get through our problems. And he said, Dad, I haven't seen it. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, well, I mean, there was that war, and then the recession, and then COVID.
One thing after another.
Yeah. And so these young people, they've just been, they haven't seen the promise that we've seen. They haven't seen that, that turnaround. And
COVID has to play a big role. The kids not being in school plays a role.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, that goes then to the evolution of the Peace Learning Center, because, when we were teaching kids conflict resolution at the beginning, the kids were telling us, if you don't teach this to my teachers and my parents, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
And so we started doing professional development with adults. And we started getting into racial equity training and conflict resolution and communication and team building for adults. And that training just really has taken off. And when COVID happened, about 75% of our work was with kids and 25% with adults. And then the school said, we don't want you. You guys can't come in. And then they said, well, there's not a place for you even online learning, because we only have so much time with these kids online. So there wasn't time for us there. And so right now, during COVID times, 95% of the work was with adults and only 5% with kids.
Now, you said something, you can't come in. I thought the kids were coming to you.
Well, they're not allowed to go on field trips either.
Well, I know, but before COVID, were they coming to you?
Oh, yeah, they were coming to us in big numbers.
That ended.
And we were, and we were going into the classroom. So
now, are they still not coming to you?
They are now.
Okay.
Because here's the thing. Before the mask mandate was lifted, they wouldn't allow 30 or 40 kids on a bus at one time because all the concentration, right? So therefore you couldn't have field trips. But now the field trips are back, and now our youth programs are up and going, and we have a lot of summer camps and a lot of other things going. But I just have to say, before COVID, we had evolved our programs into working with kids all the way down from preschool through high school, and then doing a lot of work with professional development. So before COVID, any day of the week at Peace Learning Center, we were probably had people in 4 or 5 schools doing programs either with kids or adults, and a field trip out to Peace Learning Center, and maybe another workshop at a hospital or business. We work with 15 employees. We work with over 10,000 people a year by doing these trainings and so some of those 10,000 people are in a school where our before COVID, our facilitators were visiting their classroom every week, doing social
right, and that's gone during COVID.
Yeah, but now we're getting back to that, and the schools, as far as their problems go, it's been worse now than ever because when you think about it, for 2 years, our kids lived adult lives where they had the freedom to wake up, roll over, turn on the computer, and that's was school for them, and they had all these freedoms and all this independence, and then they go back to their schools and they feel like they're in prison, and because they don't have that freedom that they had for 2 years, and the myth of high school and the myth of school was just like kind of blown away. And so getting all that authority back and getting all that all the formalities back has been really hard for a lot of schools.
But the other side of it is they did get the socialization back.
Yeah.
With their classmates and so on and so forth. I would hope that would balance out a little bit.
Yeah, it has. By the second semester, and really, this last year, the kids were in school since the fall. And so, going in the spring, and now we're in summer. And so there was a full year of school, and it got better. It was hard in the fall. It got better in the spring. And I hope by next year things start, rolling like they used to be.
Are you still only servicing IPS? Do you service the townships?
No, yeah, we I'd say about 40% of our work is IPS, and then we're up in Hamilton County and Johnson County, Boone, Hendricks, all in the Central Indiana region. And then Peace Learning Center just 3 years ago bought this curriculum. So there's this program called Tribes Learning Community. It teaches cooperative learning So a teacher can learn how to get their kids in these learning teams to learn together, math, English, history, all kinds of things. And it's this program that's been around since the 1970s. And the lady who created it, she's in her 90s now, and her kids were looking for a like-minded organization to take it over. And so we purchased the curriculum and we own it, but it's a nationally certified social emotional learning program. And with 55,000 schools around the world that have been trained in this curriculum. And so we now have this curriculum, and we have trainers that are working nationally and internationally too, right out of here at Peace Learning Center. So we're now the world headquarters of that. And it's not as big as it sounds right now, because you know how programs can wax and wane. It's been waning for a few years, but we're working with the University of Indianapolis to update the curriculum, and we're going to relaunch it as what's called Peace Learning Circles to have it better branded with us. And we have all these devotees around the world that we're working with on it. So it's pretty cool, and it's right here in Indy. But it's funny because we really acquired it right as COVID hit, and so we're just right now
ramping up. Yeah.
Yep.
This is probably an impossible question to answer, but is there any way to track how many people that have been through the program have stayed out of trouble, have gone on and gotten college degrees, gotten jobs, anything like that?
Well,
it's probably pretty hard.
No, but that's one thing that we've always had to do, to justify our existence. And we have so much foundation support, and AmeriCorps is all about getting things done, when we started.
You got to show results.
Yeah, okay, so first of all, the idea of being able to be a direct service organization that works with 10,000 people a year is pretty impressive. You'll be hard pressed to find a similar size organization that's able to impact, and that comes a lot from AmeriCorps. But where we did our best evaluations are actually at the youth prisons, at the Indiana Boys School and the Indiana Girls School, because they gave us access to kids, and we were the only extra program, so it's an evaluator and an educator's dream to have a captive audience, ironically.
Now you only go in there, they don't come to the Peace Learning Center.
That's right. So we had this program where we were going up to Pendleton, and they allowed us to work with every young man that was coming in that facility for 5 full days of their 10-day orientation. So we got to help build their minds before they went in, were exposed to the general population. When we started there, they had over 144 discipline reports a week. And when, after a 3-year period, it went down to under 20 a week.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Has it stayed there?
Our state cut our program a few years ago, and that's a whole nother story. But I'm just talking about evaluation data. I wish we were still there, but they didn't want to renew the contract, not because of our results, but because of cutbacks, from state government.
Sure.
But then the second thing that I have to say, at the girls' school, we had a group of 41 girls where we just said, okay, over the last 2 years, we've worked with these 41 girls, and so let's just see what their grades were before they came in, and what they were after they went through our program. And we, as a group, they went from a D to a B, all 41 of them, as a group. And then only 7% recidivated after 2 years, whereas the average was around 40%. And then so we were able to show a lot of success that way. But the best thing that I like is that I run into people all the time that came out to Peace Learning Center when they were kids. Since I've been there 25 years, I remember when some of these kids came out, and now they're in their 20s, 30s, and
they're probably hard to recognize.
Oh no, they don't. But it's so funny because
they know you are.
Yeah. I know. I just met this guy. His name's Adrian Russell. He is the DEI director for Shield Sexton Construction. He's like 31 or 32. I was at a business breakfast the other day, and we introduced each other. He's like, "You run Peace Learning Center?" He said, "Peace Learning Center was the best thing that ever happened to me at Indianapolis Public Schools." He said, "I went to Eagle Creek. I went to the camp, and I want you to know that it was so it was so fulfilling my life that I started my own camp. And he started his own camp teaching construction skills to high school kids.
That's awesome. And Shield Sexton's a great company.
Yes,
that's
yeah.
great.
And to have
That's
this guy that said it was so life transforming for him because he'd never seen the woods, he'd never been out in nature.
Yeah,
and so many times when we get those kids out to Eagle Creek and they look at that reservoir, they say, "Is that the ocean?" Because they've never seen such a big water.
That is that's you can't measure that.
No,
but
you
it's
can't.
There, right?
You can't. But I'll tell you, when I was when you hear that and you think, man, these kids just are 2 miles away from these woods and this water.
Don't know it exists.
But I thought if we could just do that for kids, we're doing good work.
Let's talk in the few minutes we have left about you get grants and this and that, but do you have fundraisers? How can people help?
Well, first of all, peacelearningcenter.org is our website, and I would just encourage anybody to go on there because we have a lot of workshops for the general public. So you go on there and you see anything that you're interested in, either virtually or out at the center. You'll see a lot of different options. Secondly, we have donations and volunteers. Volunteers love Peace Learning Center because one of the things they get to do is come out and host those kids at Eagle Creek Park and take them on nature walks and help with our curriculum. And so that's a big, fun volunteer thing to do. And we also take groups of volunteers to help us out. But our big event that we're having is August 27th.
That's what I really want to nail down.
And we have a 25th anniversary where we're going to have a big tent outside, and then in our building, we're going to have some things going on. And we're asking the community to come out and celebrate our 25th anniversary with that.
Do you have to buy tickets or anything?
Yeah, the tickets are at peacelearningcenter.org, and we're also looking for sponsorships too.
Is that a Saturday?
It's a Saturday, exactly. Okay. It's going to be 5 to 8. And people are like, well, why 5 to 8? And it's because it gets dark at 9 and the park closes then. And we want to get people in and out of the park before it gets dark.
Awesome. Tim Nation, Peace Learning Center, thanks for being our guest today. It's good to see you again. Next week, we'll have a guest from the Rotary Club. I just don't know who it's going to be. So don't forget, every Monday at 3 o'clock, a new episode gets up on inspiresmall.biz/Indy's Trusted Servant, and the episodes are up permanently. So if you've missed a good episode in the past, check that out. And it's been great having you, Tim.
Thank you,
God
Danny.
bless.
God bless you.
Thanks for watching this episode of the Indy's Trusted Servant Show. If you liked this episode, be sure to like, share, and subscribe for more updates. The Indy's Trusted Servant Show is produced by InspireSmall.biz in Indianapolis, Indiana. For more episodes of the Indy's Trusted Servant Show, visit www.inspiresmall.biz/Indy's Trusted Servant. Thanks for watching.